Hello, wonderful viewers. I'm Sunes Nathaniel. They say every finish line is the beginning of a new race, and as such, I'm thrilled to be joining you as the new face of Channel's Beam. I understand the legacy left by my predecessor, and I am honored to step into these shoes. Together, we're embarking on a journey of discovery, retrospection, and thought-provoking conversation. You see, this isn't just a program, it's a community, and I'm excited to engage with everyone. Whether you're tuning in for, you've been tuning in for years or you're just joining us today, thank you for welcoming me into your space. We're going to have an amazing time together, exploring ideas, sharing stories, and creating memorable moments. So buckle up and get ready for fresh perspectives, engaging discussions, and most importantly, opportunities to connect, learn, and be transformed as individuals or as a society. So here's to a new chapter of beaming positive lights upon a future filled with endless possibilities. Let's make it count. Without further ado, let's dive right into the business of the day. You see, ours is a new era of disruptions born on the wings of technology, innovations that significantly alter industries and markets, often rendering existing services or business irrelevant by bringing about rapid and unexpected change. Disruptive technologies range from artificial intelligence, quantum computing, down to augmented and virtual reality. So today, we're going to be looking at 5G disruptions and the acceleration of Nigeria's prosperity. Well, I bet that the most pertinent question will be, how can 5G help to accelerate Nigeria's prosperity? Before we get answers to these questions and several others, let's first take a look at the social media trends for last week.
From a protest demanding his resignation down to his dancing on the mandate of President Tinubu, Wike was a dominant trend in the passing week. The FCT minister seemed unmoved by the protest and calls for him to step down, saying the protesters were paid to demand his resignation. In the wake of the erroneous bombing in Kaduna that led to the death of scores, the Nigerian army came under severe scrutiny. Having owned up to its mistake, many took to social media demanding justice for the victims, stirring reactions from various quarters, with the vice president assuring that those found culpable will be punished. There was an uproar after reports suggesting that over 1,000 individuals attended the COP28 climate summit from Nigeria under the sponsorship of President Bola Tinubu's administration. The government tried to explain that many of those who attended did so out of their own purse and not from the nation's coffers. However, this explanation seemed not to have done much to assuage the situation, even as many were of the opinion that the exercise was a waste of resources and a move that raises doubts as to the federal government's compassion for the suffering of masses.
I think it's been well documented over many years in humanity, the role of technology in driving economic growth and prosperity. And what the president is looking at here, with a very clear understanding that the diversification of the Nigerian economy that we are all interested in can only be achieved through technical efficiency. And in this sense, it's about how do we bring modern digital technologies to disrupt the way we currently do things in many aspects of our society. When you look at the challenges that we face in education, for instance, what role can technology play to help to improve the learning outcomes in that space? How can technology help in education, in agriculture, to raise the level of productivity, just to ensure, that we can actually produce not only to feed ourselves, but also to export? But I think the exciting thing about technology and how it can influence our economy is actually around the talent. As you know, Nigeria is a country with over 60% of our population under the age of 25, which means we're a very youthful population. And the global technology workforce is facing a massive decline, where in many Western countries, they actually don't have enough workforce. So not only can we produce talents to leapfrog and develop our own economy, we can actually become a net exporter of talents as well. So when you look at technology and the role that our ministry play in that sense, you see that there's no strong future for Nigeria without the Ministry of Communications, Innovation and Digital Economy. So the challenge with technology is that technology in itself is not just about the tool. There's a strong social element to it. If you look at the history of how we've deployed technology in Nigeria, the government has actually invested significantly in technology, but most of the time this has been done in silos. And those silos is where the challenge is, because when you do these things in silo, you don't have the opportunity at scale to actually encourage the usage. So what we've done is to understand that this is not something you just come in and switch on. It doesn't work that way, because the reason why you still see those emails are more people issue than actually just technology issue. So there's a lot of change management that needs to happen in the adoption. Absolutely. Of course, policy is not something you introduce in 3 months. If anyone is promising you that, that's a big fat lie. You don't introduce policy in 3 months. But one thing we've done in the first 100 days that is proving to be extremely tactical, but also strategic as well, is the introduction of our strategic blueprint. And I always ask people to go back to the strategic blueprint, because this is the sort of public agreement, with the citizens and the stakeholders on how we're going to go about delivering the renewed hope agenda. And what you have in the strategic blueprint are 5 distinct clear pillars, which start with knowledge, saying that you cannot appropriate and leverage technology effectively in any society without having the workforce and the know-how. The second is what you're referring to, which is policy. And we've clearly stated there a list of set of policies that we're actually either going to be working on or updating to ensure that Nigeria can benefit deeply from digital technologies. The third thing we've done is actually in that pillar, we've introduced what we've called infrastructure, which is understanding the fact that at the base, we do have as a country a significant investment that has gone into communication infrastructure. Nigeria is one of the few countries in Africa with 7 submarine cables, now going to 9, because Meta is bringing another 2, which is landing before the end of the year. That's significant investment that can actually help to improve the quality of connectivity in the country. And what we're also doing on that infrastructure is to then say, how do we mobilize resources to ensure that that submarine cable can be taken into every corner of the country? So if you read that document, you're going to find that drop call is a function of the base stations being installed to carry the communication, sometimes being destroyed. Drop calls is a function of availability of the base station itself. And what we're doing is that if we drive the investment into fiber optic cables across Nigeria, you will see the quality of connectivity is going to go up significantly.
How much of that have we been able to in terms of fiber connectivity?
So there is clear targets. There's a work that has been done by the last government that's clearly stated that Nigeria needs to lay 95,000 kilometers of cable. Where we are at about now is about 35,000 to 45,000 has been laid. Our goal in the next 4 years is to plug that gap significantly. And in the last 3 months, we've actually done significant work, which is leading us to being able to set up a fund that will help companies to lay those cables. And it can be looking to mobilize development fund to set up a fund that the private sector can draw from. That's not a government fund. It's a fund that the private sector can draw from and use that to lay the cable. Because there are a few issues around laying cable. Private companies will tell you, I can't lay fiber optic cable in certain areas because those areas are not commercially viable. But what we're building is the ability to say, at the barest minimum, we should be able to connect our schools, hospitals, government offices. Because once we can do this, you start to see changes in the delivery of public services, to citizens, but also it becomes more effective as well for government to provide services. These are things that we've stated clearly, very clearly in our strategic blueprint.
Many thanks for staying with us. And now back to the topic of the day. Joining us is Ifeanyi Odinaka, a tech expert and a cybersecurity professional based in Canada. He joins us here in our Abuja studio. Ifeanyi, it's a pleasure having you with us today.
Thank you. Nice to meet you.
All right, let's get straight to it. So we're looking at 5G and the acceleration of Nigeria's prosperity. And then I think the question becomes, in this era, of digital disruptions, how can Nigeria strategically navigate, this evolving technological landscape? How can we navigate this landscape?
I think one of the things that we should be thinking about is how we can actually partner with private sector, because when it comes to technology and innovation, you need the private sector to actually drive it. And what we actually need from the public sector, which is the government in this case, is regulations, frameworks, making sure that the development of let's say 5G as it is right now, adhere to security standards, right? Making sure that policies are in place to guide the development of these and making sure that these are secured from the onset. So I believe that the adoption of 5G is something that we should be striving for at this point. And in a nutshell, also, we look at how 4G have transformed, even before going to 5G, how 4G have transformed the Nigerian market, and how it has also helped the youth. We see a lot of...
Now, it's good that you have brought in 4G. Yeah. So what is the possibility of attaining, this 5G within the time frame in which it becomes, very prominent for use, both in the urban areas and in the rural population? How do we make it work in such a way that we can get it across from, everywhere across Nigeria, looking at the pace in which it is coming in?
Yeah, good question. That's infrastructure, really. We look at how are we going to quickly develop the infrastructures for this. You look at 4G. 5G actually gives you almost 100 times better than in terms of speed and latency, right? That will also bridge. We know that the technologies and in terms of the internet facilities, compared to what we are getting from urban and rural area, there is a huge disparity, right? So setting those infrastructures and with 5G, that will help to bridge that gap. And I cannot run away from infrastructure. We need to start developing that in order to be able to, accelerate the growth. And we cannot shy away from private sector. We really need the private sector to be able to drive this.
All right, talk to us about infrastructure and the private sector, because it seems like it's a very key and vital area when it comes to this conversation. So talk to us about that.
Yeah, innovation always starts from the private sector, not really public, or not really from the government. What the government is there for is for policies, like I mentioned previously. So the private sector, they are the ones setting up that infrastructure. They are the ones setting up the needed technologies to actually drive the change.
All right.
So now we need the government per se to really, set up the policies that we need, making sure that what is needed from the private sector is available. One of the things I would say is light. We need that as well, right? We need logistics. We also need to also go back to the institutions. We need our institutions to be able to provide the necessary human skills that these private sectors need to strive. So those are the things I think the government needs. But in terms of every other infrastructure, like I said, private sector can provide that, but we also need incentives from the public sector.
All right. I like how you have rightly brought in the human angle. We need to provide, the workforce. We need to provide people with the skills, to make sure that this, works. I think you're going to hold your thought on that, because when we come back, we're going to be speaking a lot more on this. All right. We'll take a quick break now, and when we return, we'll be looking at the challenges and opportunities as Nigeria tries to navigate its pathway, to 5G stability. Don't go away. Stay with us. Welcome back. You're watching Channels Beam, coming to you from our studios in Abuja. Ifeanyi Odinaka is our guest, and we are dealing with how 5G can serve as a disruptive force that accelerates Nigeria's prosperity. Thank you for staying with us. Let's get down now to the core of this issue. We have been looking at how it can usher in, Nigeria's prosperity, how 5G can be an accelerative, disruptive force. The question is, what are the other sides, especially when it comes to cybersecurity? What are the downsides? What are the things we should also be watching for even as we start gunning for this 5G pathway? What are the things we must start to put in check? Because when it comes, are we going to be ready and prepared for that takeoff?
Yeah, very good question. One thing that we've realized over the past few years when it comes to innovation is the lack of government ability to actually regulate as quickly as possible. And when it comes to cybersecurity, we need that government regulations, standard frameworks in place to make sure that there are certain guidelines that companies have to follow. In terms of security as well, what policies are being put in place. Fortunately, we have so many policies that even industry standards have already produced that we can adopt as well to make a standard in terms of this is what we should be adopting. Security is a huge challenge, right? One of the things that we continue to grab, looking at AI, like you said, AI is a force to reckon with right now when it comes to this also is spring up from 5G.
All right.
We also have AI. We are seeing things like what is it called, deepfake. These are issues that are there, and the question is, how are we able to regulate these things? What are the security standards that we are putting in? So, like I mentioned before, government needs to work with the private sector, with cybersecurity folks, to come up with security frameworks that should be adopted by all sectors. And we can also have separate security standards or regulations that, let's say, health sector, this is what you guys have to adopt with. Public sector, these are the security standards that need to be adopted. And by doing so, this will help, again, to mitigate the challenges we are having. But one of the important challenges that I feel like we neglect is our institutions.
Okay.
Because while you bring a standard and while you try to, mitigate some of the challenges that cybersecurity will pose, we need skilled individuals coming in from the schools, right, to be able to fill in these challenges, to be able to provide solutions to these. And I think there is a gap there, right? I think there is a huge gap. So we need to really revamp our institution. I don't have statistics, but I'm not sure if we even have any institution right now that is currently offering cybersecurity standalone courses. These are specialized courses. I don't think we should leave it alone to private entities to provide that, but government should push on this. And we have been seeing a lot of disruption in the cybersecurity space. Right now, it's no longer just individuals sitting in the bedroom and, carrying out some hacking activities. They are state-sponsored cybersecurity threats.
Yeah.
And this is something that we should be concerned about and, try to immediately be at the forefront of it to properly protect individuals and companies.
All right. So just like the Minister of Communications had said, what is very key is the knowledge. We need a very strong knowledge base. Before you go, I want you to just react to the issue of, there's hunger and poverty, and then we're still battling with 4G. Should Nigerians, especially young people, where should we come in here? Should we really start thinking about this whole 5G movement, or what's the focus? What do you think the government should really focus on now? Because people are saying, why are we talking 5G when we don't even have the mobile phones or cannot even purchase the mobile phones? So what do you think? Should we really push forward to get this whole process in gear, or should we wait and make sure that everything is settled before we can get in 5G?
Well, I don't think we can. One of the fear, let me say, I have is being left behind for too long, because innovation doesn't wait for anyone. Yeah. Right. I don't think they're kind of mutually exclusive. We can't. I think they're kind of mutually exclusive in a way. I don't think we can be like, you know what, let's concentrate on this and leave this. We can actually do both at the same time.
All right.
5G is something that the government and private sector can push forward for, have a different sector, have a different committee per se. We really like committee in this country, right? Have something like that, people can, this can be pushed forward for. And then looking at the other side of the hunger that we are currently experiencing in this country, government are really lacking in providing a lot of incentive and a lot of, the ability to push the youths, right, and giving the youths the right path, right, to provide for these challenges we are having. I was in one of my hometown recently, and network was an issue. You can imagine that in this current age that we have, this shouldn't be something that we are experiencing. So there are students that a lot of students that don't even have access to computers. They don't even have access to internet. These are things that nations across the globe have been able to address.
Eradicates,
yeah,
kind of.
Exactly. So there are a lot of ways that government can come in. Government should go back to institutions. We should have skills development for the youth. We don't have most of that. We just have NYSC, which doesn't really provide for that, right? So I think the governments have, to an extent, have really failed the youth, and they need to really step up to provide the youth the channels and the ability to obtain the skills. I'm not just obtaining the skills, but really have something to fall back to after obtaining the skills, because skills obtained and not used is just going to lie waste.
All right.
So that's just where I think the problem is at this point, and the government needs to step up. That's just what I believe.
Right. Thank you very much. I think that's a very, very good place to hold it, that the government needs to play a very key part in enabling the young people to be a part of this journey into the acceleration of the nation's prosperity. I find Odinaka, thank you very much for coming on set today. And we hope to see you very soon also for many more other discussions.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. That's our time today on the show. Thank you very much for joining us and for sharing, this time with us. As always, we'll be leaving you with the 5 most viewed videos on our YouTube channel. I'm Sunis Nathaniel. Till we meet again next week, remember to keep beaming those positive rays of hope, because the future has arrived and the future is now.
This week's most viewed video on our YouTube is the clip in which Dangote Refinery says it has received its first 1 million barrels of Agbami crude grade from Shell International Trading and Shipping Company Limited, in a major step towards increasing Nigeria's local refining capacity. Place is the video of the Group Chief Executive Officer of the NNPCL, Mr. Mele Kyari, appearing before the Senate 48 hours after being summoned. Addressing the panel, Kyari explained that it might be possible to have a reduction in fuel pump price. However, he noted that this is not the main objective of having refineries.
The oil, you cannot deliver them at the required pressure, and therefore the volume will also be less. What is happening to the gold that everyone rushes, exactly this is what is happening in the Niger Delta. People are coming from all parts of the country to create their own bonfire. That's what it meant, the illegal refineries.
Your foreign reserves. So I get worried, because while the central bank certainly has done a lot of things wrong in the last 8 years, there has been so much attention on the CBN.
Coming in third place is the video in which former governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria, Sanusi Lamido Sanusi, called for a proper audit of the Nigerian National Petroleum Company (NNPCL), noting that this call was what cost him his job at the Apex Bank. He also insisted that President Bola Tinubu should not be the Minister of Petroleum.
And by the way, let me advise that this idea of the president being petroleum minister is not a good idea. The last president was Minister of Petroleum for 8 years. When I was governor of Central Bank, we had a petroleum minister. So when I talk...
Let me tell you, I don't like ingrates. I can't stand it. What is happening now is what if that fits very well in what Odli said in his book. Give a man power, money, is when you know the person. If you have not given a man...
Taking the second spot in this countdown is the reaction of Nyesom Wike. In this video, the FCC minister blew hot over the latest crisis in Rivers State that has put him at variance with Governor Sim Fubara. Wike argued that the Rivers State governor is at war with nobody but himself.
What is it? Look, I'm the FCT minister. What do I want? Politicians will tell you, sign this. What we are saying is that put the political family that brought you to be together.
That's what you mean by don't touch my structure.
Yes. This is something you didn't even contribute to me. People to the structure help you. And you get started within 100 days in office.
The time is now for Africa to ask fundamental questions. Because if you ask the wrong questions, you'll get the wrong answers. And I'm suggesting to us that Africa is already asking those questions.
And retaining its spot in the top 5 videos chart for this week is Professor Lumumba, maintaining that Africa is suffering because the continent continues to choose the worst people to lead the nations.
So Africa has always been a battleground. And the rhetoric that we see and the manner in which we ourselves are educated. My sister talked about education. But really, what are we teaching ourselves? It is fella Nicola Pokuti said, "Teacher, don't teach me nonsense.